I think that Dr. Tate may interweave into her question the mass incarceration continuum. As we focused back in 2015, or I believe 2016, on this idea that mass incarceration is a continuum with feeder systems that feed into this perpetual, incarceration and recidivism cycle. And so she may, touch on that as she goes into her questions. I want to read you something, and then I'm going to ask you to provide us with a response. And I'm going to set this up by saying the United Nations principles on human rights are the host of conditions that have to do with treatment, humane treatment of the residents of the prisons, but also their families, how you treat individuals, how you use punishment such as segregation and denial of liberties. And we know that prison in itself is denial of liberties. But I want to read you something and then ask you, as a human rights advocate and someone who is understanding of the Mandela rules, how would you respond as an advocate to this? The letter reads, "My brother recently passed away while serving a 7-year sentence. He was moved to a medical facility and my family wasn't contacted or given any information regarding his condition. I called the facility several times and was told that I was not on his visitor list. I tried to find out if he was able or in a state to even call or to put anyone on his list and got no response. I finally emailed the chaplain at the prison, and he called me days later to inform me of my brother's death the previous day. In addition to my family, he has siblings and children. He also has a host of grandchildren who are numb and devastated, knowing that their loved one has passed away and feeling unloved. Is there anything that we can do as advocates?" And I know that's a horrible, horrible story. But when we look at this human rights perspective, and then here we are as advocates trying to get a foothold, using grassroots initiatives and trying to find our way into policy and legislation to make a difference, what is it that you can advise us as advocates that we should be focused on?
A couple of things that I thought of. First, I just want to say, that is such a horrible story that should never, never happen. And I have no doubt it's not unique to her. I don't think it happens all the time, but I don't think it's unique. When I thought about how would I advocate with that, a couple things I thought of, one, I would want to try to get the records of what happened with his health. How long was he sick? So get somebody that could work with, if it was me, get somebody that could work with me through a Freedom of Information Act to ask for my family members' medical records, because we who work in this field know that prison specific medical facilities are not common. So when you move someone there, it's not because they got a splinter, right? So we know that something was serious in his case. And I get that sometimes people don't want to talk to their family. And so the prison system is trying to respect that somebody might not want to talk to a family member. But when you're in a situation like that, and there's clearly a chaplain there, why wouldn't the chaplain have gone to him and said, is there someone we can contact? Your family's calling me. Can I put them in contact with you? And if he says no, he says no, right? But so for that family, those are some things I think of, but I think the impact of that is at the grassroots, your organizations working with CURE to say, who else has been through this? How do we collect these stories? How do we collect these stories and put them on a map so people can start seeing that this wasn't a one-off,
Yes.
how do we go to, because then you have multiple single impact statements, right? Not just one. And I thought, like, I mean, you asked how I would advocate. Some of the things I would do is maybe make that story, talk about somebody being in a hospital, the family member not having access to them, make it a very moving story. And then at the very end say, and by the way, it was a prison hospital. So you make it a super sympathetic story. And then in the end say that hospital happened to have bars on the windows.
Excellent.
Because then so you pull people in. The Mandela rules, I was looking at them regarding this specific issue, and I thought, the Mandela rules say detained people as possible should be close to their families. It sounds like she didn't even know where he was, much less was he close to his family. It says he specifically has the right to inform his family of his serious illness. Sounds like she was informed, but again, that facility, if they're a hospital facility, they should have the resources, the caseworkers, and the people that know how to follow up with families of their patients. The Mandela rules, unfortunately, are like, they're guidelines. So they don't have what we say, they don't have teeth in court. You can't sue the government because it didn't fulfill the Mandela rules, but you can shame the government because it didn't fulfill the Mandela rules.
First of all, thank you, Heidi, for an insightful answer. I think that framing the story in a manner that taps into individuals' humanity and then say, by the way, this was a prison hospital or a prison medical ward. So thank you for that. I think that's wonderful. And I think you've also given us some ideas in terms of how to put together a set of resources and fact sheets that's related to that issue.